The text message came in while I was under the hood of a 2018 Peterbilt, checking the oil pressure on what used to be my pride and joy. My phone buzzed against the concrete floor where I'd set it down next to my toolbox. The grease on my hands was still warm from the engine block, and the Texas sun was beating down on the maintenance bay like it had a personal grudge against anyone foolish enough to work outside in July. I wiped my hands with an old shop rag and picked up the phone. The message was from Lucas, my son, the boy I'd raised alone after losing his mother Isabella in that car wreck 20 years ago. Dad, the board held an emergency vote this morning. You've been removed as CEO effective immediately. I'm taking over. Don't come to the office. Security has been notified. I stared at that screen for a long moment, the words blurring together like heat waves rising off asphalt. Then I typed back one word. Okay. My name is Mason Brooks. I'm 58 years old. And I built Brooks. Logistics from a single truck and a handshake 30 years ago. But apparently that wasn't enough for my boy. Let me tell you what happened next, because if you're a father who sacrificed everything for your kids, you need to hear this story. You need to know how to protect yourself when the people you love most decide to stab you in the back. See, Lucas wasn't always like this. When Isabella died in that head-on collision on Highway 35, he was just 15 years old. I was 38. Running a small trucking operation with 12 drivers and more debt than sense. That boy needed his mother, and all he got was a father who smelled like diesel fuel and worked 80-hour weeks just to keep the lights on. I tried my best. I really did. I went to his football games when I could, helped with his homework at the kitchen table between dispatch calls, and taught him everything I knew about engines and hard work and treating people with respect. But I also spoiled him in ways I'm not proud of. When he wanted that expensive laptop for school, I bought it. When he needed a car for his 16th birthday, I got him something nice. When Stanford accepted him, and the tuition was more than I made in 2 years, I found a way to pay for it. I told myself I was giving him opportunities I never had. What I was really doing was teaching him that money came easy, that success was his birthright, and that his old man would always be there to write the checks. The drive to the office that afternoon felt like riding to my own funeral. Every mile of road between my maintenance shop and the corporate headquarters was pavement I'd paid for with my own sweat. I'd built that building in 2005, designed every square foot of it myself, from the dispatch center with its wall of monitors to the break room, where drivers could grab coffee and complain about traffic. It was supposed to be my legacy, a place where honest people could make an honest living hauling freight across America. When I pulled into the parking lot, Lucas was waiting for me with 2 security guards I'd never seen before. Professional types in black tactical shirts and aviator sunglasses, looking like they were ready to arrest a terrorist instead of escort a 58-year-old man who just wanted to understand why his son had betrayed him. Dad, Lucas said, stepping forward. He was wearing a new suit, something expensive and European cut that probably cost more than most of my drivers made in a month. The boy who used to wear coveralls and help me change oil was now dressed like a Wall Street executive. I tried to call you. I got your message, I said, keeping my voice steady. My hands were shaking slightly, but I shoved them into my pockets. I just want to know why. He looked at the security guards, then back at me. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. The same look he used to get when he'd broken something in the house and was trying to figure out how to explain it. But then his jaw tightened, and he straightened his shoulders. And I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was planned. Because this company is dying under your management, Dad. We're still using paper logbooks while our competitors have gone digital. We're hemorrhaging money on outdated equipment and inefficient routes. The board agrees that we need fresh leadership. Fresh leadership, I repeated. The words tasted bitter. You mean you? I have an MBA from Stanford, Dad. I understand modern business practices, supply chain optimization, data analytics, customer relationship management systems. I know how to make this company profitable in the 21st century. I looked at the building behind him. My building. The one where I'd spent countless nights working on contracts, planning routes, and making sure 150 drivers had steady paychecks to feed their families. The place where Isabella used to bring me dinner when I worked late, where she'd sit in my office and help me figure out how to expand without going broke. And what happens to me? I asked. Lucas pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket like he was serving legal papers. The board has approved a generous retirement package. $10,000 a month for life, full medical benefits, and a consulting retainer if we need your expertise on legacy accounts. You can finally take that fishing trip to Montana you always talked about. $10,000 a month. For a company that grossed $75 million last year. For a business I'd built from nothing while he was learning to tie his shoes. It was more than most people made, sure, but it was also a prison sentence disguised as a golden parachute. I need to get some things from my office, I said. One of the security guards stepped forward, his hand moving instinctively toward his belt. Sir, we've been instructed not to allow you inside the building. That's when I knew this wasn't just a business decision. This wasn't a vote of no confidence from worried board members. This was a coup, carefully planned and executed, and my own son was leading it. You're making a mistake, Lucas, I said quietly. No, Dad. I'm fixing one. I walked back to my pickup truck and drove home, but I didn't stay there long. You see, Lucas made the same mistake a lot of young, educated folks make these days. He assumed that because I didn't have an MBA, I didn't understand how business really works. He thought that because I spent my days in coveralls instead of suits, I was just some old grease monkey who got lucky during the deregulation boom of the 1990s. What he didn't know was that I'd spent 30 years preparing for exactly this kind of betrayal. Not from Lucas, necessarily, but from someone who might try to take what I'd built. That's why I'd structured Brooks Logistics the way I had, with layers of protection that most people never bothered to understand. I made some calls that afternoon. First to Henry Sullivan, my lawyer and old Army buddy, who'd helped me set up the company back in '93. Henry was one of those rare attorneys who actually understood how real businesses worked, probably because he'd grown up on a cattle ranch before going to law school. Mason, he said when he picked up the phone. I heard about the board meeting. You doing okay? I'm peachy, Henry. Just peachy. Question for you. If someone wanted to move company money around without proper authorization, how would they do it? There was a pause. Are we talking hypothetically here, or should I be worried? You should be worried. Within an hour, Henry was at my kitchen table with a laptop and a stack of legal documents that looked like they could choke a horse. He'd pulled the corporate filings, bank records, and board meeting minutes from the past 6 months. What he found made my blood run cold. Lucas hadn't just voted me out that morning. He'd been planning this coup for at least 8 months, maybe longer. There were emails between him and 3 board members I'd trusted. Messages about modernizing leadership and attracting younger investors. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the money. Mason, look at this, Henry said, pointing to a series of transfers on his laptop screen. Over the past 4 months, your son has moved $8 million out of the operating account into something called Innovation Development LLC. The authorizations all have his digital signature. $8 million. That was more than half our cash reserves, money I'd saved over years of careful management to weather economic downturns and emergency equipment purchases. Money that kept 150 families fed when freight contracts got delayed or customers went bankrupt. What's innovation development? I asked. Henry clicked through some more screens. That's where it gets interesting. The company was registered in Delaware 4 months ago. The registered agent is listed as Noah Walsh, Residential address in Austin. I ran a background check on him. He's a tech consultant who specializes in digital transformation of legacy logistics companies. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Lucas has been talking to some consultant about modernizing the business. Said we needed to go all digital, get rid of the physical assets. Physical assets, Henry repeated. Like your truck fleet. Yeah, like my truck fleet. Henry pulled up another document. Mason, I hate to tell you this, but there are emails here between Lucas and a California company called Pacific Logistics Solutions. They're discussing the purchase of legacy hardware assets. That's trucks, Mason, at significantly below market value. Your son was planning to sell your entire fleet to a competitor. The room went quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner. I sat there looking at the evidence of my son's betrayal, trying to understand how the boy I'd raised could do something so calculated, so cold. There's more, Henry said gently. The innovation development account? It's been making payments to Walsh's consulting firm, but also to something called Strategic Venture Partners. That's a venture capital firm that specializes in acquiring and flipping transportation companies. I stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at the pasture where Isabella used to keep her horses. She'd died before Lucas graduated high school, so she never saw him become the man he was today. Maybe that was a blessing. How bad is it, Henry? If this money doesn't come back, Brooks Logistics is technically insolvent. Your operating capital is gone. You can't make payroll beyond next week without dipping into equipment loans, and those have covenant restrictions that would trigger default if your debt-to-equity ratio gets worse. I turned back to face him. So Lucas wasn't just stealing from me. He was destroying the company to make it easier to flip to his venture capital friends. That's exactly what he was doing. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I thought about that for a long moment. I could call the police, have my own son arrested for embezzlement. I could file civil suits that would tie him up in court for years and probably destroy any chance we'd ever have of reconciling. Or I could handle this the way I'd learned to handle problems during my 30 years in business, strategically, completely, and with maximum impact. Henry, do you remember when we set up the corporate structure, the holding company arrangement? His eyes lit up with understanding. Brooks Asset Holdings. That's right. Brooks Logistics, the operating company, leases everything from Brooks Asset Holdings. The trucks, the building, the customer contracts, even the dispatch software licenses. And Brooks Asset Holdings has exactly one shareholder. You. Me. Lucas thinks he fired the owner, but you can't fire the owner, Henry. You can only quit working for him. Henry started grinning. It was the same look he'd had back in Desert Storm when we figured out how to outflank an Iraqi position that had been giving our unit trouble for 3 days. What do you need me to do? He asked. First, I need you to file a formal challenge to that board vote. Lucas used stolen company funds to influence board members, which invalidates any decisions they made. Second, I need you to prepare papers to freeze the innovation development account and demand immediate restitution. And third, I need to make a phone call. After Henry left, I sat alone in my kitchen as the sun went down. The house felt empty in a way it hadn't since the first year after Isabella died. Back then, the emptiness was grief. This was something different. This was the hollow feeling you get when you realize you've failed at the most important job of your life: being a father. I picked up my phone and called Owen Rodriguez, my fleet manager. Owen had been with me for 15 years, ever since he came back from his second tour in Afghanistan with nowhere to go and no idea what to do with himself. I'd hired him as a mechanic, but he had a gift for logistics that reminded me of the best military planners I'd known. Within 5 years, he was running the entire operation. Owen, it's Mason. Are you somewhere you can talk privately? I'm at home, boss. What's going on? Word around the shop is that Lucas called some kind of emergency meeting today. Owen, I need you to listen carefully. Tomorrow morning, Lucas is going to try to take control of the fleet. He's going to say I'm retired, that he's in charge now, and that there are going to be some major changes in how we operate. Changes like what? Changes like selling every truck we own to our competitors and laying off every driver on the payroll. There was a long pause. Boss, are you sure about this? I've seen the paperwork, Owen. Lucas has been planning this for months. He's already stolen $8 million from the company to fund his scheme. Son of a bitch, Owen said quietly. What do you need me to do? Remember Protocol 7? Protocol 7 was something Owen and I had developed during the 2008 financial crisis, when it looked like half our customers were going to go bankrupt and drag us down with them. It was an emergency shutdown procedure that would allow us to secure all our assets and minimize losses if the company was ever in immediate danger of collapse. I remember, Owen said. Be ready to execute it tomorrow night. And Owen, don't tell anyone else about this conversation. Not yet. You got it, boss. I hung up the phone and sat in the growing darkness, thinking about the boy who used to help me wash trucks on Saturday mornings, who used to beg me to let him ride along on local deliveries, who used to say he wanted to be just like his old man when he grew up. That boy was gone. Tomorrow, I was going to have to destroy the man he'd become. The next day crawled by like a wounded animal. I stayed away from the office, spending my time in the maintenance shop where I'd started this whole journey. There's something about working with your hands that clears your head when everything else is falling apart. I rebuilt a transmission that didn't need rebuilding and tried not to think about what I was going to do that evening. Around 4 p.m., Owen called. Boss, you need to know what's happening here, he said, his voice tight with anger. Lucas called an all-hands meeting this morning. Told everyone you'd suffered some kind of mental breakdown and needed to step back for your health. He actually used the words cognitive decline. I felt heat rise in my chest. Go on. Then he introduced that consultant, Noah Walsh, slick-talking guy in a $3,000 suit who spent an hour explaining how they're going to revolutionize our business model. They want to sell the entire truck fleet and go to a digital brokerage model where we just connect customers with independent contractors through an app. What did the drivers say? What do you think? Half of them have been with us for over 10 years. These are men with families who depend on steady paychecks and health insurance. Tommy Kowalski asked what happens to their benefits, and Walsh just said they'd be transitioning to a more flexible employment structure. Tommy had been driving for me for 12 years. He had 3 kids and a wife with diabetes. The idea of turning him into an independent contractor with no benefits made me sick. Lucas announced that anyone who doesn't support the new direction should feel free to seek opportunities elsewhere. He's trying to push out the old-timers. I looked at the shop clock. It was 4:30 p.m. In 5.5 hours, I was going to pull the trigger on Protocol 7. But first, I needed to give Lucas one last chance. Owen, I'm going to call Lucas in a few minutes. After that call, be ready. I'll be ready. I sat in my truck outside a Dairy Queen, staring at my phone. Part of me hoped Lucas would answer, that we could talk this through like father and son. But I knew better. The boy I'd raised was gone. I dialed his number. Dad, I was hoping you'd call. I wanted to explain about the meeting today. Lucas, I know about Innovation Development LLC. I know about the $8 million you stole. I know about Noah Walsh and your plan to gut this company for parts. Silence. Dad, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're stealing from the drivers, from their families, from everything I built. You don't understand modern business. The mask slipped. This company is dying. We're losing market share to companies that use technology instead of old-fashioned handshake deals. I'm trying to save us. By destroying us? By evolving. Dad, you're stuck in the past. Truck drivers will be replaced by autonomous vehicles within 10 years. Physical assets are liabilities in the digital economy. I'm trying to position us for the future instead of clinging to some romantic idea about trucking." This wasn't my son talking. This was Noah Walsh's script. "Lucas, you have until midnight to put that money back and call off this scheme. After that, you're going to learn exactly what physical assets are worth." "Dad, you can't—" I hung up. At 10:30 p.m., I called Owen. "Execute Protocol 7. "Copy that, boss." What happened next was beautiful in its simplicity. Owen sent an automated message to every truck in our network. The message was coded, designed to look like routine maintenance alert. But every driver knew what it meant. Within 15 minutes, 150 trucks carrying millions of dollars worth of freight began pulling off highways across 12 states. They found truck stops and safe parking spaces and simply stopped. Drivers shut down their engines, locked their doors, and settled in for a long night. The GPS tracking would show nothing but stationary green dots where there should have been moving vehicles. Every single truck in the Brooks Logistics fleet had vanished from the transportation network. My phone started ringing at 11:45 p.m. "Lucas." I let it go to voicemail. Then I poured myself a glass of Isabella's favorite wine and sat on my front porch to watch the show. He called again at midnight, then 12:15, then 12:30. By 1 a.m., he was calling every 10 minutes. The panic in his voice grew with each message. "Dad, what did you do? The trucks aren't moving. Customers are calling." "Dad, please call me back. I don't understand what's happening." "Dad, the board is freaking out. Noah says this is impossible." "Dad, I'm sorry, okay? Just please call me back." By 3 a.m., he'd called 46 times. I finally answered on the 47th call. "Hello, Lucas." "Dad, thank God. What did you do? How did you stop the trucks?" "I didn't stop anything, son. I just took back what was mine." "What do you mean?" "I mean you've been playing CEO of a company that doesn't actually own any assets. Brooks Logistics leases everything from Brooks Asset Holdings, the trucks, the building, the customer contracts, and Brooks Asset Holdings has exactly one shareholder." Silence stretched so long, could hear him breathing. "Me," I continued. "You thought you fired the owner, Lucas, but you can't fire the owner. You can only quit working for him." "You can't do this," he whispered. "I already did it. Unless you want to explain to 150 drivers why their paychecks will bounce, along with every customer whose freight is sitting in truck stops right now, I suggest you get in your car and drive to my house. Alone." "Dad, please." "You have 1 hour, Lucas. After that, I start making calls to the FBI about wire fraud and embezzlement. And trust me, son, $8 million is federal prison time." The line went dead. I sat on that porch, sipping Isabella's wine and thinking about the boy who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read him stories. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost that boy. But maybe, just maybe, I was about to find him again. Lucas showed up at my door 45 minutes later, looking like he'd aged 10 years since yesterday morning. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair was a mess, and there were dark circles under his eyes that made him look like a man who'd been staring into an abyss. He sat across from me at my kitchen table like a scolded child, which I guess he was. The same table where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd eaten countless dinners together after Isabella died, where I'd taught him how to balance a checkbook and shake hands with a man when you gave your word. "Dad, please," he started, but I held up my hand. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of all the documents Henry had found: the shell company registration, the unauthorized transfers, the emails with Noah Walsh about liquidating our legacy assets, the correspondence with Pacific Logistics about selling our trucks below market value. "You want to talk about cognitive decline, Lucas? Let's talk about your decision-making process. Walk me through the logic of stealing $8 million from your own family's company." His face went white as he flipped through the papers. "Dad, It wasn't stealing. It was strategic investment in modernization technology. Modernization technology registered to your consultant's home address in Austin? Technology that involved selling our entire fleet to competitors? I pulled out another document, the email chain between Lucas and the venture capital firm about their exit strategy. This isn't about technology, son. This is about you getting in bed with sharks who convinced you to strip mine everything I built so they could flip it for quick profit. Lucas slumped in his chair. For a moment, he looked like the scared little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I was trying to make us bigger, Dad. I was trying to build something that would last into the future. By destroying what already worked? By turning our drivers into gig workers with no benefits? By lying to your own father? You don't understand, he said, a flash of his old arrogance returning. Everything is going digital. Physical assets are dinosaur thinking. I was trying to save us from becoming obsolete. And what about loyalty, Lucas? What about the fact that Tommy Kowalski has 3 kids and a diabetic wife who needs our insurance? What about the 150 families who count on us for steady paychecks? Those jobs were going away anyway, he said quietly. I was just accelerating the inevitable. That's when I knew I'd completely failed as a father. The boy I'd raised to understand the value of honest work had become someone who saw people as numbers on a spreadsheet. The FBI will be here in 30 minutes, I said. Henry called them after we found the evidence. Wire fraud across state lines is federal prison time, Lucas. Not county jail, not house arrest. Federal prison. The color drained from his face completely. Dad, no, please, I'm your son. That's exactly why I had to do this. Because you're my son, and I won't let you become a criminal who destroys people's lives for profit. When the FBI agents arrived, Lucas went quietly. He didn't fight the handcuffs or make excuses. He just looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, I'm sorry, Dad. The trial lasted 6 months. Lucas pled guilty to wire fraud and embezzlement to avoid a longer sentence. He got 30 months in federal prison, plus full restitution of the $8 million with interest. His venture capital friends disappeared the moment their names hit the news, leaving him to face the consequences alone. I didn't visit him in prison. I didn't send money for commissary. I let him face the full weight of his choices because that was the only way he was going to learn what real consequences felt like. When he got out, the only job he could find was loading boxes in a warehouse for $20 an hour. He worked that job for 8 months, living in a studio apartment, driving a used Toyota, learning what it meant to earn an honest paycheck. Then he came to see me. I want to try again, Dad, he said, but I want to do it right this time. So I gave him a job. Not as an executive, not as management, but as a driver. He started with local routes, learning to handle an 18-wheeler, understanding what our customers actually needed instead of what some consultant thought they should want. He's been driving for me for 18 months now. He makes $25 an hour plus mileage, same as any driver with his experience. He lives in a modest apartment, drives that same used Toyota, and has never complained once about the work or the pay. Last month, he brought me a suggestion for improving our fuel efficiency tracking. It was a good idea. Practical, cost-effective, based on real-world experience rather than theoretical nonsense. Nothing revolutionary, just smart thinking from someone who actually understood the work. You know, I told him, this is the kind of thinking that might get you promoted to dispatcher someday. He smiled, and for the first time in years, it was genuine. Thanks, Dad, but I'm in no hurry. I've got a lot more to learn first. That's when I knew I'd gotten my son back. The company is stronger now than it's ever been. We kept our drivers, our trucks, and the relationships I'd spent 30 years building. Lucas understands now that there's no shortcut to building something that lasts. You can't disrupt your way to trust, and you sure as hell can't MBA your way out of the fundamental truth that business is about people, not profit margins. My name is Mason Brooks. I'm 58 years old, and I'm still here. And if you take one thing from this story, let it be this. The greatest inheritance you can leave your children isn't money or opportunity. It's character built through genuine struggle, real consequences, and honest work. Sometimes the hardest lesson a father can teach is the one his children don't want to learn. But trust me, it's worth it when they finally understand that respect isn't inherited. It's earned, one honest day at a time.